everybody, I'm Danny Otto. Welcome into an all-new episode of That Recap Show. Now, before we get into the episode, just one issue. Major spoiler alert, we are going to be going over everything that happened in Antman and the Wasp Quantumania. That's right, it is officially on Disney+, so we figured, why not recap it? So if you haven't seen that movie yet, you may want to pause this video, head over to Disney+, check that out, and then come back and enjoy the breakdown. Now, with that out of the way, let's start the show!
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.
All right, joining with me to break down everything from Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, it's Jon Jon Rico!
Hello.
Hello!
How we doing?
Whew, we're doing good. You know, we're just starting to enter that phase where all of the summer blockbusters are starting to kick off, and, you know, some of the series are just about to kick off, so, you know, we're going to get busy real quick. Like we were, you know, I was sitting there going, you know what? It's been a little bit of a while before we've been like having like recaps like in a row and stuff like that. But now we're going to do some work.
To pick back up.
Oh yeah. We've got some work to do. But today we're going to go over Quantumania because it's now officially on Disney+. So we figured, you know what? Spoiler warnings be damned at this point because you have the full opportunity to watch it in the luxury of your own home.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, we'll get right into it. You know, both of us rewatched it before we did this. And what I was telling you before we started recording, I think is it's worth noting is, so the last time I watched it before the rewatch was literally the premiere night. I saw it Thursday night when it first came out. And I walked out of the theater going, you know what? That wasn't too bad. Now, was it my favorite Ant-Man movie? No. Was it my favorite MCU movie? No. But I didn't hate it. There were parts that I really liked. There were parts that I was like, okay. And that's how I felt. But I was telling you, after that, I didn't go back to the theater and rewatch it. But there were just like months of people just shitting on it, basically. So when it came time for us to rewatch it, to kind of recap it, I was worried that I was really like, was I off when I first like initially watched it? Like, am I going to feel like way different about it? But after rewatching it, I kind of feel exactly the same that I felt. Now, is it my favorite MCU movie? No. Is it my favorite Ant-Man movie? No. But there were still parts that I really enjoyed. And I still think it's, you know, just like we kind of both agreed, it's fine. Like, it's not bad. It's not good. It's fine.
This is fine.
So the only thing I can really say about this is obviously Paul Rudd will always be one of my favorite kind of MCU characters. I think him as Scott Lang is perfect casting. I love how he just lives in that character. So when we really had him and we had it like just kind of a couple of goofy moments throughout the movie, I loved that because I mean that's some of the my favorite parts of Ant-Man 1 and Ant-Man 2 was kind of just, you know, Paul Rudd being Scott Lang and just kind of being like that kind of, you know, goofy. I really liked that. So we got some of that. We didn't get as much, which is one thing that I think that, you know, I didn't really feel as strongly about this movie. The thing that I really, really wanted from this movie that we didn't get, and I've mentioned this to you, is where was Luis? Like, I understand there's a whole crew that you know we had in Ant-Man 1 and Ant-Man 2, but like you couldn't give me Luis for like a scene.
It's not too often that you rob a place and they get welcome back. I mean, because we just robbed you.
30 seconds, a minute, you couldn't give me Luis at all. Like, I just wanted him to like maybe quickly recap what has happened since Endgame or anything, just like something goofy or like post them getting out of the quantum realm. Scott and Luis are at a lunch table or something like that. And Luis is like, wait a minute. so what just happened? And he's like talking really quick, like trying to like grasp what Scott's been telling him about the quantum realm and stuff like that. Like anything like that with Luis, I think would have been like perfect to me. Like just to have him, his inclusion in the movie, I think would have been great, and I would have appreciated it a little bit more. But you know, like I said, overall, I enjoyed watching the movie, and I did pay to go see it in the theaters, and you know, obviously, I paid a subscription for Disney Plus, so I paid for it again, basically, for when it came out on the Disney Plus. I enjoyed it. I you know, if I'm going to watch the Ant-Man trilogy, obviously I'm going to watch all three of them, and I'm not going to, you know, shy away from this one. I enjoyed like how they've started to set things up for a bigger villain moving forward. That's one thing that we got out of this. I just knocked something off my desk. Uh, that's one main thing we got out of this. One criticism I will say is I think maybe they made it less an Ant-Man movie and more a movie to set up things for the future. Whereas, you know, what I was saying during the Guardians of the Galaxy recap that we just did, the recent Guardians 3 recap that we did, we had a very self-contained story, and on top of that, a very self-contained trilogy. And you know, Ant-Man 1 and to a major extent, Ant-Man 2 are very self-contained also. So this story having a very expanded kind of universe and kind of things that are going to be built for the future in the MCU kind of felt out of place for an Ant-Man movie, I guess. And I think that's kind of where things kind of went a little awry for me. But like I said, overall, I think it's a decent movie. It's definitely not my least favorite MCU movie. But anyway, Rico, I could go on for forever. What were some of your initial impressions of Quantumania?
Yeah, it was interesting watching this back for a second time. Given like all like seeing people's reactions after the fact, and having watched all the breakdowns and such that we usually do. But yeah, like you said, it's fine. It's a fine movie. If I had to put the three of the trilogy in a ranking, I'd have to go with the first one, and then this one, and then Ant-Man 2 for me.
Oh, okay.
But what I really like is that kind of Peyton Reed made like the closest thing he basically could to like as like a Star Wars movie in the MCU, essentially. Given that this is like the entire thing was set within the quantum realm, which first of all, like shout out to the visual effects team. Like the quantum realm looked amazing. Like
Yeah.
so many beautiful shots within this movie. But like just that kind of way you had like the separate groups of the whole team off in different parts of the quantum realm doing like their own little mission. You had you know, Janet, Hope, and Hank kind of doing their own thing. You know, Bill Murray, and again, I think some of these supporting characters in the quantum realm, I feel like were a little bit underused. I feel like because you had a great chance to make up something really big of Bill Murray's character, and even the people that Scott and Cassie went into. I can't remember the mind reader's name, but also Veb and all those guys. I think Veb was probably the most well used of all of them, but I thought that the way they were all kind of interacting with these quirky alien characters just felt very Star Wars to me. And which you could tell because he did direct a few episodes of The Mandalorian, including the one with Luke Skywalker in it. So like he's dipped his toes into both waters, as we should say. But yeah, I did like that aspect of it. I thought it was a pretty solid introduction for Kang. Just you know, just this version of Kang and setting up the idea that we will see more of him. Uh, so yeah, but also like you said, the way this is like this movie was basically like a giant commercial for what's to come in the future, right? So I think that's kind of one thing I had going against it. It's set up like in fans' eyes, like the stakes of this is supposed to be like massive, and it still felt like a pretty solid like little. It was an Ant-Man movie, but just within the quantum realm. Not necessarily like you know setting up this major conflict in the future. Like it just kind of hinting it, and like okay, now you can watch the next thing that's going to come out, and we'll tell you more about that then.
Don't worry about that right now.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, when you think about it, this movie came out in February, and you know, it's setting up stuff that's going to come out like, you know, it's still a few months from now. And so I feel like we're getting like this big break within telling like this bigger story. Of course, you know, yeah, we had Guardians come out this month, but that was again a self-contained story, which is just kind of like wrapping up that story for that team, right? And other than that, we've had very few like real big setups for like this, you know, big conflict that we're about to see. So, yeah, I really, really liked like they set it up a little bit, but there's still a lot to be left desired, which I feel like is working against it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're kind of both in agreement with that. And I'm surprised at your ranking for the three Ant-Man movies. I enjoyed Ant-Man and the Wasp. It definitely a little bit more than this one.
Yeah, to me, it's largely forgettable.
But it has Louise.
Sure. What does he do? I don't even know what he does in it. Like it's
He's worried about the client that they're trying to land the whole
right,
time.
right.
So he's
right.
like freaking out to Scott the whole time. But anyway, you want to get to some takeaways?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. All right. Why don't you kick us off with big takeaways?
Okay. Yeah, so I'll kind of go back to another point you brought up, which was talking bring up Louise, but the lack of the rest of the supporting cast is really prominent in this movie. I felt like again we talk about them hanging out with all these new kind of quirky alien characters within the quantum realm, but I feel like kind of the heart of the first two movies is the fact that you have a solid supporting cast behind them. So
Yeah.
you still had David Desmalchin, but he was playing Veb. uh but even like Ti, and then Michael Pena, of course, like the whole crew of Scott's friends. But then you have Judy Greer and Bobby Cannavale as Cassie's mom and stepdad, and I feel like missing that whole connective family part of it. Like, of course, now Cassie's hanging out with Hope and Hank and Janet with all them, and it feels like one big family. But it's like, no, those people are part of the family too, and they're not even there in the movie. So yeah, kind of missing like that key element of like the whole Ant-Man family to me was like, I feel like you could have spent more time at the beginning of the movie kind of establishing that, like, what their life is like before we just jumped right into the quantum realm debacle. I just feel like it was really, I felt that part was a little bit rushed. But I really want to talk about MODOK. um it's such an interesting thing, man, because like the reaction to him, I feel like, is what I expected. Pretty divisive. People that really don't like him, people think like, yeah, he's pretty silly, but I like it. I kind of lean on both ends of it. Like there's good and bad parts of it. The good parts of it is like, obviously the character looks ridiculous. No matter where you see him in any medium, like he's a giant head with little arms, little legs. So they did as probably as good of a job as they could do on a CGI character like that, where it was pretty goofy looking, but I could still take it somewhat serious in some parts. I really love when they added the face mask part of his armor, because that's when, of course, he looks menacing and threatening to a point. I kind of wish we could have gotten more of that to a degree, because he's set up to be pretty goofy from the start, and uh, like the butt cheek scene is just kind of like he's supposed to be like one of these all time villains in Marvel, and here we are seeing his butt cheeks. But one of the things I also did like was the fact that they actually utilized this moment to put Darren Cross back into the story. So of course Darren Cross is not MODOK in the comics,
Right.
but using him to kind of be like this quantum realm experiment to become MODOK, I felt like was the right move to make. And I really enjoyed like the way he was kind of integrating the story that way. But then from there on, it just gets like weird. Like his interactions with his Scott and Hope are just kind of like, they're all kind of thrown off by like his death scene, of course. And it's kind of like that Deadpool 2 death scene where I feel like he's not gonna die yet, and then he finally dies type of thing, where like we're just kind of waiting for like that life thing to go off. And then Scott just kind of wraps him up, was like, well, this has been a day. I was like, okay, yeah, that seems like the right reaction to have. But then also like his whole character motivation is just like, I don't want to be a dick anymore, which I thought was kind of funny. But yeah, I just feel like you could have had like you could have taken a goofy character and made his character arc just a little bit more serious, and maybe it would have gripped people a little bit more. And also have some more shots of him just being a mechanized organism designed only for killing. Right? I would have seen like some pretty badass moments from him as far as action wise. Like his intro is pretty cool though. I will give him that. But yeah, that's my piece on MODOK. It's especially because I played him in the Avengers game, and I actually kind of liked the way he was portrayed in the Avengers game. It was a pretty like dark take on like his origin and stuff like that. So I would have liked to see something like that to a degree. But again, this is the Ant-Man movies and Paul Rudd, so it's going to be goofy to a degree, and I appreciated it for what it was.
Yeah. I have two things on MODOK. First one is, do you remember the the series with Patton Oswalt voicing MODOK,
Mhm.
like that clay. For me, I think that is kind of what already ruined the Darren Cross MODOK thing, because for me it was like I really enjoyed that series, and I
Yeah.
really enjoyed Patton Oswalt's kind of take on MODOK and then the
Yeah.
series take on him. So like I would have fell over like if they had Patton being MODOK instead of Darren Cross. I understand it, just like you said, it makes sense like that to be able to use Darren Cross again because he did get sucked into the quantum realm, and it explains like a very different origin of MODOK, but it makes sense inside the Ant-Man universe why they did it that way. But just
Yeah.
having that series out years ago, I guess at this point,
It's been a while.
yeah, kind of prepped me for not being able to take Darren as MODOK type of thing. The second is my favorite reoccurring kind of joke is when he's trying to be menacing after he sees like either Scott or Cassie or anybody else, and he's like being really menacing, and every single one of them had the same reaction. Darren?
Yeah, I did like that. They're just like, wait, that's you?
Yeah, I love that. Like he's trying to be super scary and menacing, and every single one of them stopped and goes, Darren? Like
Yeah.
it just starts like, even Hank was like, holy shit.
That was really funny. It was really funny.
I really liked that. And I know I said two things. One more is that shift in his character. I think it made sense. And I think it would have been a better payoff had the movie been longer and we got scenes like you were saying where
More
he
with him and
was
Kang.
right, where he was way more ominous. Now we do kind of find out that, you know, Kang is basically just like kicking him around, like does not give two shits about him or anything like that. So there is that dynamic, and we do see that. So maybe that was supposed to be there to see why the shift could happen so much quicker, because he realizes he's just Kang's kind of, you know, experiment, and Kang doesn't see him as anything basically. So that might be there to explain why he has such like an instant shift. But had we had more scenes with him being way more kind of destructive and ominous, maybe not to our main characters, but to the characters that they met type of thing. Like they were terrified of him. And for our main characters to just be like, Darren, like, and not really be afraid of him at all. That shift just kind of didn't feel as significant, I guess. Right. And had we had other things to kind of build that, then I think it would have made more sense, and it would have felt more earned, I guess, more important type of thing to have that kind of shift. But yeah, I fall on the side. I think the goofiness was funny, and I liked it. You know, I enjoyed kind of the jokes that they made about him and the goofiness type of thing. That side of it. But that's
again,
the kind of
he's a ridiculous character. So at the end of the day, when you can laugh at him and still somewhat portray him as badass, like you did like in his intro, I'm like, okay, cool. You got your MODOK moment. He's gone there. So we did it.
Right. and my my introduction to MODOK really, it has been kind of the sarcastic version. Like I said, Patton Oswalt. Like that's the memorable MODOK to me. That not the, you know, scarier, darker version of MODOK that I'm sure is in the comics and you were saying is in the video game. I didn't get very far in the video game, I'm gonna be honest.
But I played it for the story.
Yeah, but yeah. So like I was already kind of ready to have a funny, more sarcastic MODOK type of thing. But yeah, Patton Oswalt MODOK, I think is my MODOK basically. Right.
We still got Patton as Pip the Troll though.
Exactly. We definitely got Patton in the future. Exactly. So big takeaways. I mean, there's a lot of things we can kind of talk about for big takeaways that are more significant that lead kind of to the future. But I feel like both of us used our predictions for those kind of things for the future. So my takeaway is I just wanted to mention a scene that I think combined a lot of things that made me enjoy it that much more. Is I really liked the scene where Scott is going to get the I guess the engine, the battery component type of thing. Where
he's the thing he's stealing for Kang.
Right. And he starts, you know, having possibilities of himself, different possibility. He's in the possibility field or whatever they call it. I can't remember exactly what they call it.
Probability storm.
Probability thing. Yeah. Probability field. And so different Ant-Men and Scott Langs are coming through. Side note, I love the Baskin Robbins version. He's like, why am I here? Yeah. Like, I just like
this to me is one of the best sequences in the movie, in my opinion.
Same. That's why I put this in my big takeaways, because what I really enjoyed about it was, you know, it had the humor. obviously, like there were, it had all of the elements that I really enjoy from the first Ant-Man, where we had humor, we had action, and we had a little bit of horror. And I don't mean horror like super scary or anything, but just like elements of, kind of trippiness, where he's kind of fighting with himself at first and you don't know what's going to happen. And same thing with Hope, like while she's trying to rescue him and stuff. And we have those kind of just it's almost like parts of Multiverse of Madness, where it's not like horror scary, but it's just kind of like trippiness type of thing.
Oh yeah.
And it has kind of all of those elements, and I think it uses all of those in a combination really well. And that's why I think I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that scene, because I think, especially after rewatch, I appreciated that scene even more, as one of kind of my favorite scenes from the movie in general.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I love the Baskin Robbins version of Scott. He goes, "Why? What are you wearing?" This is what I wear for work.
Yeah.
It's just like,
Yeah, that scene is great because, again, you're talking about, it has like the funny elements, of course, with the Baskin Robbins Scott in there, and then of course the Ant-Man movies have like this unique style of visual effects that kind of is like unique to those movies, given the characters' powers. And this is like, I would say this movie, and then in the first movie when he first shrinks down for the first time, that entire sequence is just like amazing to me. But I think this is that scene too, like where you're seeing him crawl up like a big ant pile, so like a great representation of what the character is. And then of course the way Hope comes in to save him and how they kind of merge back into one being again was a really cool effect shot as well. And all the scenes where like he's traveling down to the quantum realm is like, shrinking down smaller and smaller, how that goes into different parts of it just looks amazing. But also he adds the element of what the heart of Ant-Man's character is, of course, and it's his motivation to always save Cassie. He's always doing this for Cassie, right? So every time they inject that part into it, it always kind of amplifies the scene a little bit more. And of course, it helps him get him out of the bind every single time. So yeah, it's a credible scene through and through.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to get to some predictions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. All right, I'm gonna kick off predictions because I've got a two-parter. Not so much predictions, but just kind of theories. We've had so much time to kind of sit and reflect about this movie and to read a bunch about other people reflecting about the movie, both positive and negative, and then theories about it. And one theory that's kind of been floating around since like the first couple of days that the movie was released, that I really, has just been in my brain. And when I rewatched it, I even made sure to rewatch the end and really pay attention, is the theory that Scott may have not ever made it out of the quantum realm. Or he may have made it out, but he made it into a simulation from Kang type of thing. It doesn't even have to be the Conqueror version of Kang. That could have all really happened, but it could be the council, somebody from the council actually, making an illusion, doing this stuff. Because we have the sequence where he's walking down the sidewalk after he's out, and even he's freaking out. He's like, we did stop him, right? I saw it. Yeah, we definitely stopped him.
Right.
We did beat him, right? I mean, yeah, that's what happened. He was getting out and he didn't get out.
One person in the theory in one of the theories I read, there's been a lot of them have kind of been very similar. One theory where one person was talking about this said there are an awful lot of purple and green elements as he's walking down the street and as he's in the restaurant with everyone, like the whole team and stuff like that. Even the cake is green and the balloons are purple when they're in the restaurant type of thing. There's a lady that has like either a green or a purple shirt on, and like she's pushing a baby stroller that's got the opposite color. There's a lot of elements of green and purple. Now, they could just be in there because they're like saying, we're not done with Kang, basically. They're just kind of, trying to basically, have a little subtle mention of like, we're going to have another Kang. He's coming back. Like, you know what I mean?
A looming threat.
Right. It could just be that. And we're supposed to pick it up, but he's not. And he's dreading about like what Kang said. And, did we really get rid of Kang and all of this stuff? It could just be that, like context and just little subtle things. Or it could be this theory where he's technically not out. Or it's already the beginning of, Secret Wars or Kang Dynasty, or this illusion that has been kind of made to seem like Scott and the team have won when they really haven't. And I like that theory because it puts so much more power in the hand of the Kang or the Kangs or anything like that. If they can create this entire illusion to make the team think that they've won when they really haven't, and that seems like a giant looming threat. If that is really the takeaway from the end of the movie, it makes Kang such a bigger villain than what we actually saw. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So
yeah.
I know this is just a theory. Nothing's ever been confirmed. Nothing obviously could be confirmed until we get other movies with Kang in it and stuff like that. But I love this theory, and I just had to highlight that. The second thing I wanted to mention is, so we get a post-credit scene where we get the Council of Kangs, and we get a million different versions. Obviously, we highlight a couple of really important variants that we're probably going to see in other other MCU properties and stuff like that, that are kind of highlighted. But we get the stands, the grandstands of everyone, like every version of Kang and stuff like that. But what they're talking about is how, this Kang one of the Kangs has been eliminated and stuff like that. He's been taken out. Part of me thinks that this is a misdirect, and they want us to think that they're talking about King the Conqueror. But who I think they're actually talking about is He Who Remains. Right. Because He Who Remains is actually, we know that for a fact. Sylvie definitely often. Mm-hmm. But we don't know what happened to King the Conqueror. He gets sucked into the thing. But, the old adage for any superhero movie or any horror movie is, if you don't see somebody die, they might not actually be dead. You know what I mean? Yeah. So we don't know if King the Conqueror is actually gone. Number one. The only Kang variant we know for sure is actually gone is He Who Remains. And so I want to think that post-credit scene is a misdirect, and we're really talking about He Who Remains. They're really talking about He Who Remains variant. Also, because of the fact, we know that He Who Remains was pruning all of the other timelines. We know that for a fact. So he was stopping all of the other Kang variants from forming, basically, and from being able to form the Council of Kangs. So if they're going to really hate any Kang variant, all of them, unite hating any Kang variant, I think it's that one, because that's the one that's stopping all of them to get together. And, we don't really know the time that Council of Kangs scene is versus Loki, the end of Loki season 1. We don't know, because both take place out of time. So we just don't know where they're going to fit together. That could literally be taking place right after the season finale of Loki, for all we know. Right. And not after Antman, Quantumania type of thing. So it's just two things that I think are really interesting to think about, theories that I think are really interesting to think about. And I'm excited to see if anything, any part of those kind of get confirmed, in the years down the line movies. We have a couple years to wait for the real Kang threat, Kang Dynasty and Avengers Secret Wars type of thing. That's 2025, I think, is when we're getting both of those. So yeah, it's just interesting to kind of see these theories and to kind of see them build on things that could technically be true. But anyway, Rico, what were some of your predictions moving forward?
Yeah, I did like the way they ended that movie with kind of this, just kind of circling back to the intro of the movie where, he's just walking on the street to, I think it's the Welcome Back Kotter theme. Yep. But just kind of playing back on that whole thing where yeah, we did it, but did we do it? And then the final shot being him being eating the sherbet or whatever it is and not liking it, or the cake and cake, that kind of being hey, left a bad taste in his mouth. So it's okay, now we have something to look forward to. You don't just defeat Kang, you have to keep defeating Kang over and over and over. So I think that is something that is really well set up within the end of the movie and in that first post credit scenes. Some of the way that a lot of those Kangs act is just pretty weird. They're all of them just to scream. That's pretty much what they all do. They scream.
They're cheering.
Maniacs. They're wild maniacs. But yeah, so that was really fun. And then, of course, the second post-credit scene, which is basically the commercial for Loki season 2. We have Loki and Mobius kind of in what looks like the 1800s at a presentation, and it's Victor Timely, but it's Kang. So it's basically just another version of Kang. We don't know if it's the Kang that we know, or if this is a new version. I'm assuming it's going to be a new version. But yeah, I think that's going to be very fun to kind of see how this character's story continues on when Loki season 2 comes out. Now in October, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So still a little ways away. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like going from February to October without more development in the story, I think is a pretty wild move. We'll see how Secret Invasion goes, but I have a feeling that's going to keep itself to a pretty like street level style of storytelling. But you never know with scrolls involved. And then, of course, like there's a big elephant in the room, of course, with the whole Jonathan Majors drama, of course, and there's still a lot of uncertainty around that. I feel like at this point, maybe we're safe. Where he's going to keep playing the role, but in the crazy chance that they had to do this, there are possible actors you could do for recasting, and I had a really cool one in mind. John David Washington, who is of course Denzel's son from Tenet,
Oh.
and another Black Klansman is another movie he's great in, but I feel like another guy who could kind of bring that great gravitas to a role like this. If in the off chance they had to do something like this, fingers crossed that they don't have to do that. Because I do really like Jonathan Majors in this role, and I want to see him kind of grow other versions of these characters, like the 3 that we saw in the Kang Dynasty or the Kang, Council, like we had the Pharaoh version, we have like that kind of like cyborg version.
Ramatut, yeah.
Yeah, the Ramatut version, and then like the kind of Genghis Khan-y version of him, which I thought was really cool. So yeah, I want to see stuff like that kind of grow into other shows and projects. Bring Ramatut into Moon Knight,
Oh, it's gotta be.
That's really what I want to start seeing. I want to see some bigger storytelling start to happen here.
Yeah. Don't get me started on Secret Invasion. I am very excited for that.
Yeah.
But you were mentioning casting, and I'm just gonna mention an in-universe MCU casting that I feel like a lot of people have mentioned, and maybe it's just coming off of the high praise of Guardians Volume 3, but High Evolutionary, I could see that actor kind of coming in, and then the explanation be something about something changed in the multiverse where it was really Jonathan Majors Kang, but then something shifted, and then it became variants of the High Evolutionary and Jonathan Majors kind of crossed type of thing, and that's what we're getting in certain multiverse things where we have that and kind of some sort of in multiverse explanation for it. But I could see
that'd be a lot of working around stuff.
Right.
It'd be fun to see him tackle that challenge.
Right, but I could see that actor because he's another person I could see kind of having that very ominous presence if given the chance to, basically.
Chukwudi Iwuji is his name. Yes, that's his name. He's great in Peacemaker as well.
Absolutely. I feel like that's the thing though, because I mean there's so many different versions of Kang that some of them are going to play super ominous and everyone's beneath them, kind of like the High Evolutionary type of thing.
Mhm.
And then others are going to play like his character in Peacemaker, where you kind of see him a little bit more human type of thing. And which is funny to say because he's really technically an alien. But you see him a little bit more human, and he does have kind of like a little bit of a quirky side to him by the end of that season type of thing. So I think having an actor that could kind of be that full spectrum of, completely commanding and super, super overpowered all the way to kind of humanizing him.
Yeah,
I think
unhinged.
I think he could probably do that, and I think it would be interesting. Yeah, but as we always say, that's what we think. Let us know in the comments below. What did you think of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and where does it rank in the Ant-Man trilogy? Because that's what's really interesting is kind of hearing by everybody else, like just in the scope of Ant-Man movies, where does it rank for you? And as always, don't forget, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to hear about all of our audio and video podcast releases. Bye, everybody!
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.